The dumb things I did when I was a kid. The dumb things I did when I was a kid.
The dumb things I did when I was a kid.
My name is Doug, and I did dumb things when I was a kid.
My name is Zerb, and I did dumb things when I was a kid.
And we like to discuss those dumb things we did when we were kids on this podcast, which we affectionately call the dumb things I did when I was a kid. So, Zerb, good to have you back with me for this episode. You were with us in spirit, if not always in person, during the last episode when we had Rob Flack O'Hara on to discuss playground stories, but there was technical difficulties, and even though I am speaking to you in the podcast, you can hear me call you out by name. Ultimately, we had to remove you entirely from the show because your vocals
Pluttered out.
Yeah, just did not get saved. So it's good to have you back with me and today, and hopefully we're going to go back and pick up those playground stories that you had to share with us, and you did share a couple, and we'll try to get them down and recorded for posterity in the future. Today, though, as we are on a tight schedule, we're shoehorning in an episode here. Both of us are quite busy today, but we wanted to go into new territory, and we wanted to do pool stories. We wanted to talk about the dumb things we did as kids at the pool, and I've got quite a few stories. I imagine you do too. Love to give you first crack, bud.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Well, first I want to say, again, thank you to Rob for covering up for me. Thank you very much for last month. It was like listening to a show where I had passed away, and that's what it would sound like. So that was very interesting. I was there in spirit.
If you had passed away, we'd have a lot of other stories to tell.
Oh, that must be true. You would be able to get all the others out.
Yes.
But since Memorial Day had just passed, I figured what a better choice than pool stories. And since they're open, how about some ideas for the little kiddies? So here we go. One of the famous stories, and I'm sure you have these too, is the running and jumping into what is about 3 feet of water, thinking that you have 7.
Yes.
And I can go back to like any age from maybe 10 years old all the way up to 16, where I've done this over and over again, and you end up with that massive scar on your forehead or a massive scar on your nose because you've peeled skin off by scraping your face on the cement bottom. And there was always pools that had the Kills paint bottom, where there was a whole bunch of rugged mess, or you had the super smooth, and depending on what you had at the bottom of that pool, resulted in what kind of scar you would have on your face for the entire summer. And I was more partial to the Kills bottoms, where it was crusty and covered with a bunch of rocks and goodies, and my face would just be pot-marked from countless head dives into the bottom of the pool and smacking my face. And you could find me by the trail of pink that I left behind me when I walked away. So.
Well, I actually did not have that experience. I don't know if
really?
I was a little more gracious. I mean, there were plenty of times that I did head first into the shallow end, but I always was able to pull up, dolphin-like or merman-like maybe, and just, strafe the bottom, But we did have that kiln surface that you're talking about, and even though I didn't get it to the face, oh, man, did it tear up my feet, particularly your big toes.
Yeah.
And you would go home. It's hard to understand today. I don't get to swim very much today, but I do remember being sunburned, having my feet torn to pieces, and having my eyes, just burning with chlorine, and kind of hazy. Your vision's kind of hazy because I would open my eyes underwater, with the chlorine, and so. But
burn your skull out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, surprising that I can still see today. For me, there are 2 pools that stand out in my, besides the little kiddie pools that your parents would set up at the house, the inflatable one or the rigid plastic one that, within 10 minutes had all kind of grass and dirt floating on the top of it, was littered with your toys. Before Mom married Dad, we lived in a low-income housing that had a pool. And as you said, Memorial Day, I mean, that was the day the pool opened. it's really kind of cold here in California. It's surprising to think about there. It's cold by California standards anyway. But I remember that in Ohio, the pool opened, and I remember all of us, low-income kids gather around the pool, and the maintenance man hadn't opened it yet, and he was still cleaning it. And there was some device that, like an underwater vacuum cleaner on a big long pole or something that he was using. And, he was telling us at 3 o'clock you get to go in. And all of a sudden, two older guys, tackled each other on the edge of the pool into the pool.
Yeah.
And I think he just gave up and said, all right, go ahead and swim. But, we had, at that time, we always wanted to be the first in. And those guys, had the ultimate credential because they were the first in for the season. Now, we still had the first in for the day. And there were a couple of times that I was first in that day. I was the first in the pool that day. But those guys, took the cake because they were the first in for the year. I could only do the dog paddle at that point in time. Now, we eventually did get me swimming lessons, and I'm a good swimmer, I guess, but I don't use my legs. I just kind of twist back and forth and use my arms. I wish I had better form, but
to this day,
yeah, I don't use my legs. But back then I was just doing the dog paddle. There was, though, at the bottom of that pool, besides the device that the maintenance man was using to clean it, there was a filter of some sort, or like a drain. And the rumor was, this was probably like 8 foot, I would guess, would be the deep end. It's just a little kidney bowl pool, the kind that skaters would skate in. And it just, you couldn't put 20 people in it. But, so the deep end was maybe 8 feet at best. But there was that filter there. And the rumor was that if you dove down and touched that filter, you would get suctioned to the bottom and you could not get off and you would drown.
Heard that. Yep. Had the same thing in Virginia.
Do you know anybody that tested it?
I did.
Okay.
And no.
That's not going to happen to me.
No, I couldn't believe it. There was always the story of a kid, and his name was always Mike, who died at the bottom of the pool. And, just don't go down to that bottom and don't get near that suction thing, because that's it's like a filter to go in, and then a bunch of pipes, and like his arm got sucked into the pipe and he couldn't get out, his whole arm, even though the hole is probably about a good 2 millimeters big. Yeah. So I went down and I tried to put my foot on it, and it didn't do anything. I stuck my toe in it. It didn't do anything. You just feel this little, and then you pull it right out and swim back up again. It didn't do anything.
I don't remember there being any suction on ours at all. I think when the whole group finally got the courage to test it, you dive down there, and I don't remember there even being what you're describing, the little, it was nothing. And then, when reality breaks into fantasy, there's that moment of disappointment, and,
it's canceled.
Yeah, it's all over from there. But, what else you got? What other stories you got there?
Well, going back to you were talking about the kiddie pool with the dirt. I did that. We had a pool up in Smallwood, New York, where the cabin was, and we used to fill that up with sand because we wanted to go down to the lake, but we were too young. Mom wouldn't let us go down to the lake. She said that it was too deep, and that we would end up floating in the lake if we went down there. We were just too young, and she didn't want to see her children floating face down in the lake, which I could understand. Mm-hmm. You don't want to end up that way. So I went out and I got as much sand as I could, and I dumped it into the baby pool. It was probably about 5 or 6, and it became like a lake. And then my great aunts came out and yelled at me, you just destroyed the baby pool. It's all muddy and disgusting. I didn't stop with handfuls of sand. I took shovels and just kept throwing it in. So basically it was the equivalent of what pigs would use to relax in the afternoon. Just became this mess, this goop. So I called my aunts out. I'm like, I had 5 great aunts at that time. I got them all out there. I want to show you a trick. I'm all covered. You would think I was another nationality. I was so covered in mess. And should I leave that? So I came.
we're not super politically correct. If somebody in India wants to make jokes about pale skin, go for it.
Yeah, please get me back.
Yeah.
So I jump in and I said, watch this. And I shove my face down into this muddy goop mess. And I said, I'm holding my breath. And I'm like, and I come back up and I am just a mess. And I remember my mom scooping me out of there and like yelling at me. And I just ended up in the shower and being washed up and crying because my great, wonderful display of how I could hold my breath underwater and survive if you took me down to the lake was just destroyed by anger for some reason. I couldn't understand why. And
Wow.
that's yeah. So that was my experience with our kiddie pool. And it didn't last either. They threw it away after that. They didn't want me ever doing that again. So
Well, I don't have too many stories, with the kiddie pool, and I think I've kind of exhausted, my couple of half stories there with the apartment pool. But we did go, to some lakes. There was one guy in Ohio that had like a little pond on his property, and I don't know why everybody would go there and swim. But we did, and he had a little raft out in the middle, and he determined that I wasn't a good enough swimmer, and he wouldn't let me go in the deep end. We went to Deer Creek sometimes, and I thought there were, I was looking out for jaws. I was afraid of sharks being,
yeah.
I don't know what
I
Deer
went through
Creek
that.
is even. I don't know if it's a reservoir or a lake or whatever. But so I almost drowned in the Ohio River.
Oh no.
On the West Virginia side, the McCoys are from West Virginia, and we were with them. And I had those swim fins, and like a snorkel and mask, and I went out there. And I didn't know anything was wrong, but I look up, and my mom is just full bore running and just breaking through the water, and grabs me. And my Grandma McCoy, was trying to get her shoes off, apparently. So apparently I was being carried away by the current. Mom dove in to save me. Grandma McCoy needed to get her shoes off first. But it must have been a strong current because I lost my fin. My fin got ripped off my foot and was gone, and I've always wondered where that fin ended up, somewhere in the Mississippi, I guess.
Probably. Was there a point were you worried?
No.
Did you ever?
I was not aware that I was in danger. I must have been.
Okay.
Because I don't think, Mom wasn't really a hypochondriac. Mom was not an
Right.
overreactor. So I must have been in danger. I did not perceive it. All I know is that all of a sudden Mom is charging through the water.
Wow.
And I clearly remember Grandma McCoy trying to kick her shoes off. She was going to rescue me, but the shoes needed to be preserved.
Yeah, the shoes were important.
So I don't. Did Mom overreact? Was Grandma McCoy actually the sensible one? I don't know. But I know I lost my swim fin. So those are my natural body of water stories. But eventually, after we moved into my childhood home, and anybody who listens to the podcast know about my weird childhood where Mom was a single mom for a while, and then she married, the man that I call my dad, who is the only dad I've ever known. And we moved into what I consider my childhood home in 1984 when I was 10. They were becoming a little more affluent, not as affluent as they would be, by the time I moved out, but a little more affluent. And they got us memberships to a swimming pool on the west side of Columbus, which does not exist anymore. I've tried to find it on Google Earth, and it's been buried. But it was called Wee Bonnie Swim Club.
Oh.
And so they got us a membership, and this was basically their babysitter, their summer school break babysitter. Every day they had a lady from church pick us up, her daughter and me and my sister, drop us off at the pool, and my dad picked us up and took us home. So it's kind of a carpooling, mutual babysitter thing. And I have lots of adventures at Wee Bonnie. I remember first there was it was Wee Bonnie Swim Club and golf course. So there was a golf holes, I guess 18 holes right next to it.
Yeah.
So we go in, you went in, it's a brick building, and ladies, you tell them your number or whatever. That was how it worked, McCoy 681 or whatever. And men peel off to the left and women to the right into the changing rooms, and then you go out into the pool area. Right, there was a big sign on the front that said, "Welcome to our OOL." OOL. Notice there is no P in it. Please keep it that way. Well,
Right.
Me being the dense, literal kid that I was, I thought this was an anti-graffiti message. I think they were telling you, I thought they were saying, don't deface the property,
Right.
I had no clue that people would pee in the pool.
Right.
That never occurred to me as a kid. So I had it was only years later I realized that sign was not about graffiti. That's yeah. So that was, I have a lot of stories of Wee Bonnie. I want to give you another crack though, now that I've, set the stage here, for where the bulk of my stories come from. You got any other swimming pool stories? Did you ever have a membership like Wee Bonnie or a pool you went to every day?
Yeah, we used to go to the Knights of Columbus. The story that comes to mind at the Knights of Columbus, there is a dumb thing and then a courageous thing I did. Which would you like to hear?
Hey, let's do the courageous. The subtitle is the title of the podcast is "The Dumb Things I Did When I Was a Kid," and there's a subtitle in parentheses and a few of the smart things too. So, hey, give us your smart or courageous story here.
The smart and courageous story is that my friends at my age of 11 years old challenged me to go and talk to probably the hottest chick I had ever seen up until that age, in a beautiful bikini at the end of the pool area, sitting there tanning, sort of like a Kim Brock. What was her name in Weird Science? Kelly Brock.
Kelly Brock.
Kelly
Yeah.
LeBrock.
Kelly LeBrock.
And yep, and so I said, I'm not talking to her. I bet you wouldn't go talk to her, and da 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 da. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to show them all. I'm going to go talk to this chick and ask her out. And she was probably, anywhere from 18 to 23. Here I am 11 trying to, strut my stuff. So I walked over to her. I talked to her and I said, look, I'm going to be as honest with you as I can. I'll never forget this. My friends over there bet me that I couldn't talk to you, and I really want to talk to you because I think you're pretty. Can I do that? And it worked. She goes, sit down. And I was like, so I sat down at the edge of it was a lounger, so I sat on the end next to her feet. And she goes, do you live around here? And it's like, yeah, I live around here. What's your name? My name's Kevin. and we just talked for a while, and all my friends were like, oh my God. Oh, and they just sat there for a while, and then she says, well, it's good to meet you, Kevin. And she closed her eyes, went back to suntanning, and I got up, and I just turned around and looked at the guys like, oh my God. It just walked back over. It's like, yeah. Well, I didn't say yeah then. You don't go, yeah, because, you're 11. It's more like, yeah. So I told them, and they were proud of me, and I got high fives, and the rest of the day I was on cloud nine. That was it. I talked to Kelly LeBrock.
That is awesome, dude.
It was great.
Yeah, that is so. You hate to be like the sour grapes guy, but to me, my experience has been few of the. There's pretty girls that are nice, but it really seems like there's a lot that like know what they are and know the collateral that they have, and so to have one like that, that's it is. That's that's your capital there. Your looks are your money maker. So
consolation prize. Yeah, I understand.
But so to have one be so nice to you, that is.
She was very nice. Yeah,
that is awesome.
She was very nice. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, but otherwise, the bad part of that same pool was me jumping on the diving board. Here's back to dumb things.
Okay.
I'm trying to show off. Maybe I don't know if it was the same day for her or for any other girls that I always thought were looking at me, because that's all they ever did when I was 11 to 15. In my mind, they were looking at me. Mm-hmm. No other guys mattered, because I was the shiz. So I jumped, and I remember one day I jumped up so high, and I came down exactly in the same place that I jumped up, which meant board to the back. So, because I'm trying to do the cannonball thing,
right.
or not the cannonball, the jackknife or whatever it is, where you hold your kneecap.
Yes.
And keep your legs straight.
Is what we call
can
it.
Opener.
Yeah.
I was the king of can openers, except when you jump up and came down the same way that you went up. Yeah. My back was all scraped up because the board went, shaved the back all the way up to the neck. Oh man, yeah, that beautiful carbon, plastic, whatever it was made from, poly. Ugh. So that hurt. And again, they found me by following the trail of dark red to the front, and I got out. And the girls are looking at you, and you're crying like a 2-year-old, but that hurts.
I said on the last episode, and I'll say it again, because I'm not sure if you heard us or not. I know you listened to the episode later, but I told Rob most of my dumb stories end with some sort of public humiliation or lesson learned or something like that. Most of your dumb stories end with a trip to the emergency room.
It does. It does.
You are the crash test dummy of all my friends. I mean, that's what you are.
Thank you.
The human pincushion.
I've always been so glad that I've survived this long.
Well, we had diving boards at Wee Bonnie as well. We had 3 of them, a low, a medium, and a high. The pool was a big L, basically. The one at the apartment complex, the low income housing had been, a little kidney bowl. This one was a big L, lots of room. I mean, you could have 100, 150 people in this pool. At the top of the L, you've got like the 3 feet, and you keep going down until it got to be 8 or 9 feet, I guess, at the deep end.
Yeah.
And then you go in, that's where the L turns, and you go into the diving board area, which is the short little, base part of the L, and that was 10 feet.
Right.
So the big thing to do, we went off the diving boards. We did cannonballs. We did can openers. We like to try to splash the lifeguards because they were on like a 8 feet little chair up there, watching the diving board area. I was very good at can. I like when you did that can opener, when you did it right, you displaced the water around you and created a vacuum. And then, boom, that vacuum slammed shut on your head. I mean, it was really, if you did it right, it's kind of painful. But summertime, 80s music, neon swim trunks, you're doing the can opener.
Yes.
Bam! I mean, that's just one of the best memories of my life. But, we did all that. But we also wanted to go to the bottom of the 10 feet, So we wanted to go to the bottom at the apartment pool, but had been afraid of the filter. We were over those. I had, some group of ruffians. There was the girl from church, and then there was just general kids, that this was also their daycare that you would meet, and, so, we all, the little gang of us, wanted to go down to the bottom of the 10 feet. And the only way that I could do that was by going off the high dive. So I learned to dive, head first. It was 10-foot high dive. And that velocity would take me all the way down to the bottom. And there were 2 things there. Sometimes people would throw money in there. We would go down there. We'd find quarters and stuff.
Right. And there used to play that.
Yeah, there was, they had an arcade that had Galaxian, not Galaxian, Galaga. I write about this in my book, Arcadian. Galaga was in the little arcade, track and field, some like quiz game or something that I wasn't fond of. And I forget, there was another, Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man was in there.
Right.
So if you're picking up quarters from the deep end that somebody's dropped or thrown in there, there's, a video game. There also was a snack bar that, had snow cones and stuff like that. If you get enough, you can get a snow cone to have because every hour there was like a 10-minute break, they blow the whistle and all the
food
kids.
Time.
Yeah. So that was food time and rest time. It was good to find that money, but also just, the cred that you got from being able to dive down at the bottom. Now, I tried, the last time I went off a high dive was in 2000, and I'm not terribly out of shape. I'm about 20 pounds overweight, but I'm not terribly out of shape. And
me neither. I'm about 50 pounds overweight, but but go ahead.
There's people that are worse, right? So you're not terribly out of shape.
That's true.
So this year 2000,
just obese.
I go to a similar pool that we had there in Jeffersonville, Ohio, which is where I was at the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do this all the time, kid. Go up to the high dive, go off, do head first, boom, my entire spine. Just crack, 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 crack. I mean, it didn't do any damage or anything, but it was seriously like somebody dropped an anvil on my head. And I got up and I could walk, and I was like, I'm not doing that again. I was sore the next day. I've never. But as a kid, I would do those jackknives off the diving board, and I dive off the high dive.
Is that when you auditioned for Game of Thrones, or no?
No, that was just general stupidity that had no potential payoff whatsoever, except maybe impressing some underage girls or something. I don't know what I was trying to do, but again, though, highlighting I don't know that it's stupidity. I just think I've never been in tune with the world around me. There's just always this. If there's a way to misinterpret something, I will. So there was a sign on the diving board, telling you what you. And one command was no cutaways. Now, I came to learn that cutaway is when you stand backwards on the board and you jump up and you fold into a dive. So you could hit your head on. I mean, a lot of people have hit their head on the diving board doing that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was shorts or something like that.
You
That's
thought
what I
thought it was what?
Pants.
I did
I thought
too.
that meant no cutoffs.
That's what I thought it meant. I thought it meant you're not allowed to wear denim cut because people would be swimming. They wouldn't have swim trunks. They'd have denim jeans that they had cut off, and you'd have the frayed ends there. That's what I thought it meant.
Yeah.
No cutoffs. I didn't know why cutoffs weren't allowed in the diving area, but that's what I thought it meant.
Did you pull off a cutaway and get yelled at when you were diving?
I never did. I did when I was in college. I worked for 4 years as I just told your wife last night, who got into some poison ivy. I worked for 4 years as the caretaker of a Christian camp. And I got poison ivy 8 times the first year and learned how to handle poison ivy for the remaining 3 years. But we had a little kidney-shaped pool there. I mean, not as small as the one at the apartment, but not as big as Wee Bonnie. And I would do cutaways on that dive. And one time I got too far out and I fell. Like my toes just gave way and it hurt. And the lifeguard, who was a girl that I would eat, lunch with every day, this some little high school girl. I was a college kid. She's a high school girl. She comes up to me. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yep." Because I do not like to be checked up on. I do not like, if I'm hurt, let me suffer in silence. Don't come draw attention to it. And so,
you're like a kitty cat.
Yeah. So of course she came running over. Are you? And I'm like, "Yep, I'm all right. Just leave me alone." But so I did do cutaways. Yeah. All I would do off the diving board is dive and so forth. But we would find money other places too. I remember one time finding a dollar bill floating, and then for some reason, so I grabbed the dollar bill and I was running over because you'd come in with your stuff. You'd have your sunblock and your swimming towel and whatever, your
boombox.
Yeah, and so I was taking it, so you would stake that. There was a grassy area where all that stuff was, and there was a paved area too where it had lawn chairs and so forth. But we were always in the grass. And for some unknown reason, I just said, I'm going to dive in right here. And I dove in right, about the 6 foot. And my hand hit another dollar bill. So I don't know who was throwing dollar bills into it. But, yeah. So you'd find that money.
Penny.
Yep.
I was going to say pennies from heaven, Doug, and that's your calling.
Oh, my goodness.
And
dude, I was tight. I mean, I've always been tight. I've always been cheap. Did I tell you, that there was a guy trying to cause trouble in our church? Mm-hmm. And there's a lady here, wonderful lady, but she must have called me cheap or something, because she probably asked me for something. I was like, "Oh, well, I can get it here cheap or whatever." And she said, "Doug is cheap." And he was trying to throw that in my face, to cause trouble. He's like, "Well, she said you're cheap." And I just looked at him and said, "Yeah, I am." I mean, that doesn't hurt my feeling. First of all, I'm not going to allow you to stir up trouble. I'm more mature than that. And second of all, truth is truth. I mean, if you say Doug has a terrible sense of humor, yeah, I do. If you say Doug's kind of dense, yeah, I am. I mean, truth is truth. So so I was cheap even back then, and I had a little, I don't know what it was, some little plastic bottle or something that I had filled with change and all these dollars. And there were many times in my life that I would find dollar bills out and about, and I held on to them, man. And I used them for Yar Kung Fu and Galaga and, all the video games that I love. But so one time we go off the high dive and we go down to the bottom of this 10-foot. Now, this is probably my best or worst dumb thing pool story, depending on your perspective.
Oh, boy.
But so we go off the high dive, boom, down to where I go down there. There's this kid down there wearing cutaways, wearing cutoffs. He's, white trash from the west side of Ohio, just like me, only he had, I was white trash from the west side of Ohio, but I resisted it. I still tried to be Alex P. Keaton, even though I was, more legit.
Skippy.
Yeah, Joe Dirt. I was.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was more legitimately Joe Dirt than Alex P. Keaton, but I was trying to be Alex P. Keaton. This guy had embraced his Joe Dirt side. And he was down there waiting for me. And he was much older than me. He was down at the bottom. Both of us are down there at the bottom of 10 foot. I'm sure the lifeguards like blowing their whistles. Get out of here. And this dude, I mean, he was not an enemy. I don't know that he was just kind of an acquaintance, Just because he thought it was funny, he gives me the finger. So we're there 10 feet underwater.
That was nice.
He puts up his middle finger. And I started to laugh. Well, I started to laugh 10 feet underwater. And as I expel the air in a laugh, there is an immediate, need to inhale, and so
Of
I
course.
start clawing towards the top, and I lost any momentum.
No.
You were supposed to get your feet on the bottom and push up, and I didn't do that, so I'm just clawing, trying to get to the top as my lungs are demanding that I inhale, and I finally break the surface, and I almost died and everything. This dude comes up to me, so you dive in, and there's a little ladder on the side, you get out and get back in line. He comes up, he said, "All I saw, man, were great big bubbles coming out of your face."
That was my life coming out of my face. Is
You
what that
almost
was.
drowned, and I thought it was hilarious. So,
Oh
what
my
about you? What else
gosh.
you got in the
Man.
pipe here, Zerb?
Oh my gosh. I have to think. I really think that's it for the pool stories. The lake and ocean stories. The ocean. I'll do my last story, which is an ocean story. This happened in my elder teen years. There was a woman that was kind of set up with me with one of my college buddies. And so it's a little past my teen years, but that's okay. And we were out in the ocean, and she and I were swimming, talking, getting to know each other. And then we realized pretty much what you were going through with your snorkel and your grandmother taking off the shoes and your mom coming at you. I was floating away, and then I realized she was too. Where we started was way down diagonally from where we are now. It's just like we are going fast. So, and again, this is a courageous story. I just met this woman, and I was like, I tell you what, I have a feeling that we're getting further and further out. We can't panic. If we panic, we're going to get lost. And it's really freaky how you reach a point where the undertow is pulling you out further and further, especially in the ocean. Because then you start thinking about Jaws, and you start thinking about all the other things that are going to get you. So I'm freaking out. But what I did was I grabbed her around her waist kind of, and I said, just use this other arm and help me paddle us back in. We have to do it. She was freaking out, just getting really upset, and it got me to the point deep down I was scared to death. But we slowly made it back in, made it all the way in. Fast forward to that evening after all the time, you saved my life. You're such a dream. You're such a nice. And then that night, we kissed for the first time, and it was the most disgusting kiss I've ever had with a woman because there was no lips involved. It was like it was like kissing an octopus leg. It was just like, and then that was it. I saved her life and told her I'm not interested.
Oh. If I would have known what a bad kisser you were, I would have let the undertow take you.
I should have warned you.
Well, the first time I kissed a girl who was a year older than me, by the way, which gets you points, but we banged our teeth together. So yeah.
Oh, your teeth,
bam.
good. I'm glad you
that was great.
ended.
So Han Solo made it look so easy, but hey, you rescued her life. You earned a kiss. I mean, that is what we learned from MacGyver and Knight Rider and all of my favorite '80s action shows. You save the girl. You get the kiss, and then next week you've got another chick.
Yeah, exactly. You just
So you were living the dream, buddy.
You just move on. Yeah, we were. I was just living the dream. That's right.
Art imitates life. TV becomes reality. I have a similar story again. I want to come back to Wee Bonnie, but you remind me of a similar story. We all used to go down these Ohio creeks on big inner tubes. We would go out. So when you get out in the country, which is where my dad's son from his previous marriage liked to go, and he had to watch us sometimes in the pre-Wee Bonnie years. So he would take us out in the country. I have no clue to this day. There's no way I could find where we had been. I mean, I can take guesses, but because it's not like we were that far away from Columbus. But we were on the west side of Columbus, and I think I described this in our opening episode. I mean, the skyscrapers were to the right, but to the left was nothing. Mm-hmm. There's nothing but open. So who knows where we were? But he would go to a farm. And this farmer would sell him an old tractor inner tube that was, no good anymore. And he had a patch kit. He'd patch them and inflate them, and we'd go riding down these rapids. Well, he had a friend named Red. They weren't rapids, not by California standards. They were, little eddies or whatever. But and just some kids. I don't remember who these kids are, but we all had our sneakers on because of snapping turtles. So we're in shorts.
Yeah, definitely got to watch
shorts
out.
and sneakers because of snap turtles. And something happened, and we all went flying, just in the water. And I did not see this happen. I heard it later, but apparently this one kid that I didn't know well got stuck on a log that was pointing up in the water. His sneaker got stuck on a log with him pointing upside down. So he's going to drown. And this guy, Red, saw it and just reached out and plucked his sneaker off and freed him. And as they come up, the guy, I mean, it wasn't like it was a huge thing. They didn't react to it like it was a huge thing. But, they're telling the story, and I'm like, that is awesome. You saved his life.
Yeah, it is.
So I thought it was pretty cool. But
that is very cool.
It's an interesting adventure. But back to Wee Bonnie. Let me round out some of the stories that I got there. I said they had the game room. One of the lifeguards accidentally punched me in the face one time as I was.
Oops.
Yeah,
Well, how was it accidental?
They were some big Galaga competitors there. And, I mean, these guys would I couldn't get past the third board on Galaga, but these guys would get away. By the way, on the cruise that Hot Pink Heather and I just took a couple months ago, they had Galaga in their little arcade there, and I was tearing it up, man. I could not stop playing Galaga. I mean, I'd never got that far in my life. But in any case, so I'm
congratulations.
I'm this little kid trying to shoehorn my way in and see the Galaga action, and one of the lifeguards just jerked his arm back for some reason, just caught me right in the eye socket. Bap! My head goes back. He turns around, looks at me, and then it doesn't say a word. I mean, the lifeguards hated us. They were all one family, and maybe family friends, but they were, whoever owned the Wee Bonnie owned this place, and there was one matriarch that ruled them all. The Sauron of Wee Bonnie Swimming Club, and
you were so beneath these people that
they
you
would
were
yell
scum.
Like they had these little rubber, not like kick balls, but the little balls that kids have to play with. They're like latex balls, I guess, and you could
dodgeball.
Well, no, not dodgeball, not that quality, just like what a baby has to play with. Aubrey, my daughter, has.
I got
so
you. Okay.
You could go check those out, and I would float them. I'd put them on because I was a small kid. I'd sit on them. I'd force them underwater with my hands, get them under my bottom, wrap my legs around them, and then I could float vertically and paddle around with my arms. One of these times, I kicked that over the fence, and I did it on purpose. I just kicked it over the fence, and one of the lifeguards saw me, and you stupid kids, and then he wanted me to go clean up as punishment, he told me to go get it. And when I tried to go get it, because it was on the golf course side, the golf people started yelling at me. So I came back,
you stupid kid.
Yeah,
you hear it from both sides.
From the golf side and the pool side. But, we were so beneath them. I mean, they just despise it. And I understand. I mean, that's why I don't like customer service. You eventually begin to despise your customers.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to try to mitigate against that, and they weren't very good at that. They had a jukebox out there as well. And I remember one year that the jam on the jukebox was 5 Minutes of Funk. Do you remember that one? Yeah.
Vaguely.
The party didn't start till I walked in, and I probably won't leave until the thing ends. But in the meantime and in between time, you work your thing and I'll work mine. And he just goes on it's 5 minutes, I forget I forget. I don't know if it's Grandmaster Flash or something. I don't know who it is. But we always want to play that. And then there was that song Roxanne. Do you remember Roxanne? Roxanne. I want to be your man. Well, they also had the Police Roxanne in there. And at the time, we didn't think that was cool. So I remember we went to the jukebox one time, and we put in a chord, we're going to do Roxanne. We're going to be one of the cool kids to play Roxanne. And all of a sudden, we get Sting saying, Roxanne, And, and what you were supposed to do is you were supposed to stand there at the jukebox, while the song played and, be enjoying it and grooving to it and everything. And I did not want to stand there while Roxanne was playing. I was too embarrassed to be seen around that Roxanne. There was a girl that started mooning people one day. I remember that. I was very excited about that. I never understood. Yes.
I'm always excited when girls start mooning.
It's kind of unpleasant
wonderful
when guys do it, but I never understood why a girl mooning you was an insult. I was like, please insult me. Insult me again. So there was something that made her mad that the lifeguards did, that she just started saying, "You can't tell me what to do," and she starts, dropping her drawers, So
I would keep telling her what to do.
Tell her again, But then there was now it was about this time that thongs came out, and this was such a wonderful time. I mean, this was mid '80s. This was pure '80s proper, not the early '80s that's still tainted by the '70s, not the late '80s that you're beginning to get the '90s taint to it. This was pure '80s. You got girls and jellies, guys and jams. All the quintessential '80s music playing on the jukebox if you've got a quarter to afford it, and if not, it's coming through the boombox. You've got Prince, Cyndi Lauper, Madonna. Everybody wants to rule the world.
'80s in its perfect
Tears for
state.
Fears, everybody wants to rule the world.
Right.
Just all this wonderful music. Well, the thongs come out that year. I mean, at least they did in Ohio. I'd never heard of them before. And I remember there was even a news story about girls are wearing these things and you can see their bottoms. And some girl decided to wear one of those at Wee Bonnie. And in my opinion, she wasn't a very good looking girl. She kind of looked like a female Bon Jovi member, I guess. Like if Bon Jovi was a woman, this is what he would look like. And that's unkind. I shouldn't be talking about people's appearance. That's unkind. But in any case, she wasn't
Jovi.
Kelly
Yeah.
LeBron.
No, go ahead.
She wasn't somebody that
Right.
You
You wanted to see
but
in
she
the
had
song.
it on, and if it's there in front of your eyes, you're going to be taking the furtive glances there. So. I remember there was this matriarch of Wee Bonnie, as I said, and I just watched this whole drama unfold. I don't know how, but the matriarch of Wee Bonnie comes out and starts walking towards this woman, and they were on the other side of the pool, so I did not hear what they said, but the woman ended up putting a robe on and did not get to swim the rest of the night. So, yeah, I'm assuming that
Thong didn't go over too well, did it? Pun intended.
No up with thongs there at Wee Bonnie. So the thong was verboten at the Wee Bonnie Swim Club, and it's again, it's so neat watching these dramas unfold when you don't need to hear what's being said. You just know what is going to be said, and I just watched this woman walk over, knowing what's going to happen. How I figured that out as a little kid, I don't know, but watched her walk over, watched her say a few brief words to this girl, watch this girl put her robe on, sit down on her chair and cross her arms, and that was the end of the infamous Wee Bonnie thong incident. So.
Exactly. I think there's a song like that. Oh, Wee Bonnie with the thong. What is that?
The great Wee Bonnie thong disaster of 1986, I believe, is one of the Bee Gees' first cuts.
It made headlines.
But
nobody gets to wear thongs anymore.
Exactly. So I could keep going with that. I'm thinking of the next line of that song right now. But I'm not going to torment anybody with my Barry Gibb impersonation. So, other than that, there's a lot of stupid stuff that did happen at Wee Bonnie, but a lot of good. I remember, a lot of times you run around in gangs of kids, but we were there 5 or 6 hours a day. We spent the first part of the day watching TV, our little latchkey life. This lady from church come pick us up at noon. We go to Wee Bonnie. We'd have a Little Debbie and a peanut butter jelly sandwich in our bag, to eat in mid-afternoon. Dad would come pick us up and bring us home in time to watch Nickelodeon. What a wonderful summer. 3 or 4 summers that was. I also had swim lessons there. It's where I did somewhat learn to swim. And I remember that there were times when I would just be by myself in the shallow end of the pool. And I started pretending. So this must have been 86, 87. Where I was just young enough to be still kind of immature, but old enough to start having more adult affectations. And I would pretend to be the guys from Contra. The guys from Contra, the NES game, when they jump and flip. And so in the shallow end, I could jump and do like a flip, and I would, there's, in slow motion too. Sometimes the NES would slow down. Everybody is familiar with the slowdown. There was a part in the early stage of the game where you go underwater in Contra, and I would pretend that I'm jumping and doing this flip, and then I'm popping up with my spread gun, and again, Prince is playing, Roxanne is coming out of the jukebox. Girls in thongs are walking by and mooning you while they're wearing their jams and their jellies and their neon colors. A lot of stupidity going on there, but a lot of wonderful times happening there as well. And it is a shame when I discovered, again, I don't know if I ever posted, if I ever shared with you that video I made, my old stomping grounds. I may have marked the spot where Wee Bonnie was, but it doesn't exist anymore. And that's
that's a shame.
As mean
that
as the matriarch and her minions were, I still, it's a little sad that that's not there anymore.
Yeah. That is a shame. I hate that. I went back to Virginia a couple weeks ago to go pick up more goodies to bring back here in Connecticut, and I know exactly what you're talking about. A lot of it was almost scary being back home again, and it's only been 2.5 years, maybe, or 1.5 years, 2.5 years, and how much has changed? Everything is gone. My high school is now a giant mall of a high school. The church is gone. The playgrounds I grew up are gone and replaced with bigger buildings to house bigger people with more money.
Yeah.
And everything has just changed so much. I hate that when everything disappears like that. That's the purpose of these shows.
You know, Rob and I talked about this last time where I said you can see the bones of my old neighborhood. That's true of the Strip. Now, if you get into Lincoln Village North or South, those are mostly still intact. My elementary school is gone. And the
good.
Field there has changed a little bit, but mostly my neighborhood's still intact. It's the main roads and the things that were on the main roads, the stores and stuff that have all changed. And it's so sad. But Wee Bonnie, hasn't just been changed. It's been obliterated. I don't understand, what the logic was. I'm going to have to watch the video and see what is in that spot. But they must have filled in the pool. You don't bulldoze a pool.
That's amazing.
You don't bulldoze a pool, I don't suppose. So they must have filled it in, and I don't know if they built on top of it or if it's just a lot today. But how sad,
That means that in the future, if all of a sudden you're like working in the office where that was located and someone is drowning in their office, you can grab the owner of that building and shake them and say, "You built the building over the pool. You left the pool, but you took the," and
that would that's awesome. That would be awesome. You didn't fill in the pool. You built over top of it, but you didn't fill it in. And now our IT guy is drowning. The ghost of a girl in a thong has come up and is choking Bob.
Exactly. Took the thong off and wrapped it around his neck. He's dying with a smile on his face. It's terrible.
Hey, this is getting really stupid, Kevin. So we got to. But I wanted to say it was interesting. Again, I'm not sure how much you heard live and how much you heard recorded from our last episode, but Flack took this podcast as a challenge, I suppose. I mean, he assumed he could outdumb us.
Yeah.
I got more dumb stories than you guys got, I think is what he said. So I guess there are people out there that think they're dumber than we are. And
that's a comfort.
If the gauntlet has been laid down, if the challenge is out there and you would like to come on and share some dumb stories, dumb things you did when you were a kid, we'd love to do that with you. We know there's a certain circle that is really, part of the Throwback Network, but we know there are other listeners out there that have never tried podcasting before or anything. If you got some dumb stories to share, you want to share them with us, this podcast is just guys we're trying to preserve and record the stories that we've always been telling, but still the groove of the show is just, this is what happens when some guys get together, there's a campfire, there's a beer, and we start telling stories and trying to one-up each other. Yeah, and
exactly.
So if you want to be the third wheel here to our little motorcycle, if you want to be the sidecar of the little chopper we got going here, we'd love to have you on and share some dumb stories with us. So thanks to Rob for being on. Thanks to you, Kevin, for being back. And,
thank you very much. Thank you. And if they want to be on, tell them to definitely look us up on Facebook, Kevin Zerbinator Zerby or Doug McCoy, and look us up and send us a message. Our emails are on our websites. So please look us up and contact us. We'd love to have you on.
Zerbinatorland.wordpress.com?
Yes. No, Zerbinator.wordpress.com.
Okay, Zerbinator, no land. For me, it is McCoycast.wordpress.com or author DougMcCoy.wordpress.com. You're going to find all my pertinence and such as the Geico pig would
yes.
put it.
Pertinence and such. Well
right
said.
there on
Yeah.
the website. We'd love to hear from you if you got some dumb stories to share. Either in print or in podcast form. We'd love to hear it. And invite you
Surely.
to check out Throwback Network, which puts our shows out there where lots of other folks can get them, and they got lots of great shows on there. Several of yours, Zerb, I know, Flax, Sprite Castle, and You Don't Know Flack, Throwback Reviews, which you're on as well. You guys didn't like Weekend at Bernie's, man.
Yeah.
You guys, and I haven't
No.
seen it in since I saw it in the theater, I haven't seen it. But I was like, man.
I loved it. I loved it then.
Well-
then I loved it. But after watching it again, I was
I
like,
got
oh my
to see
God.
it for free. This is one of the smart things I did when I was a kid. There was a newspaper ad saying free preview weekend. Come to Westland Cinema and you'll get a free ticket to Weekend at Bernie's. So
Oh,
I told all
nice.
my friends we could see Weekend at Bernie's for free. And I remember, I don't know why I did this, but I remember we were walking, we got our free tickets and we were walking in there. And my friends were ahead of me. And for some reason, I just went, Weekend at Bernie's, like that for some reason. I don't know why. And my friends just started laughing at me. I was excited to see Weekend at Bernie's. You guys thoroughly trashed it, I think. And maybe deservedly so. I haven't, as I said, I haven't seen it in decades. I did see the sequel, though. I saw the sequel on VHS. But
Yeah.
so Throwback Reviews is up there. Zerb's Horror Nights, you guys did Exorcist, I know that.
We got Horror Nights. We're about to do Babadook. That'll be the next one, hopefully this week. And SWOTR, the Spiderweb's Old Time Radio Show, just got put up there.
I've seen that as
So,
well. So
yeah.
lots of great shows to check out on Throwback Network, and stuff to find about, ways to find us is what I'm trying to say, on Zerbinator.wordpress.com, McCoycast.wordpress.com. Hope to hear from you. Would love to get some feedback from you. If we don't, though, between now and next time we record, we do hope that you will come back for more stories of dumb things we did when we were kids.
McCoycast.